Good morning, guys. Today we are here with Mr. McGoey. Did I say it right, Barry?
You did.
God damn. I was practicing it. Well, guys, we told you exercise because we are in a crisis and we need to take this extremely serious. Barry, thank you for taking the time, to sit with us. Barry, this is something that I haven't seen it in my entire life. Countries being shut down, cities being shut down, communities completely locked. But there is a group of people that, regardless if there is a shutdown or not, they have to engage with the general population every single day. And you are the leader of one of those groups. How is your membership dealing with this?
Well, we're like everybody else. Everybody's concerned. We're trying to advise our members to have good social distance skills, wash their hands, stay clean, try to protect themselves and their family, and their work to make sure that they don't become complacent and to wear the proper protective equipment and just follow the standard operating guidelines as best as possible to protect themselves as well as to serve the residents of the city of Yonkers.
Now, Barry, those steps are easy for me. I'm a regular guy. I don't have to run from here to there to help people in need, but your group is. And those steps might be a little bit more difficult for them to follow than for the general public to follow.
Yes.
How do they manage? Because I see them running in fires back, and they don't know about the guy who they're carrying. What
Right. Well, this pandemic is only one of the things that we have to deal with. We're still going to have heart attacks and strokes and childbirths. We're going to have motor vehicle accidents. We're going to have fires. So this is just one of the many things that we have to deal with, and we have to prioritize. We have a limited, even in a city the size of Yonkers, our staff is limited. One of the things I'm very concerned about is our members becoming exposed to the virus and have to be quarantined, and then possibly that could spread to a whole firehouse or battalion. And then our ability to respond to fires and other emergencies could be significantly restricted. So that's why it's critically important that our members try to protect themselves as much as they possibly can, because we depend upon them not only for this crisis, but for every other emergency that occurs in the city of Yonkers.
Yeah. Now, guys, before any criticism starts, due to why am I chatting or why am I looking at my iPad, it's because this interview is live streamed and people might be posing questions that I need to read in order to ask Mr. McGoey, about those. So I don't want you to think that I'm being disrespectful in any way, shape, or form. Mr. McGoey, I was at one of at a call yesterday. Was it yesterday or the other day, or the day before? And there was a call of a suspicion of a person infected. All those calls, the fire department also responds, or just EMS? What's the procedure?
At the present time, we are responding. We're in constant communication with the City Hall as well as the Fire Commissioner as to whether or not that's the prudent thing for us to do. Because in all effect, there's not much the Yonkers firefighters can do for someone who's exhibiting those symptoms. They're not going to have an immediate, it's not an immediate death scenario. And that's what we're most effective at. We can get to somebody's home if they're having a heart attack or a stroke, an allergic reaction, if there's a motor vehicle accident, if there's trauma. But with people that are exhibiting signs of a high fever, cough, shortness of breath, there's not much Yonkers firefighters can do. And we're asking the questions, is it prudent for us to be responding to those calls? I can tell you last night between 6 p.m. and midnight, we had 7 of those calls. And that's a tremendous amount of potential exposures to our first responders. We need our police officers and our firefighters and EMS workers to be there, because not only can the emergency room and the hospital system be overwhelmed, we have to be very careful we don't overwhelm our first responders.
Yes. Well, since yesterday to today, I have heard more than 20 calls.
Yes.
Confirmed, suspicions of. It's unbelievable. A call from one of our members here, Salfata. What protective equipment are your members using, and has those equipments been supplied to your department?
Well, we have gowns and shields and masks and respirators. However, just the sheer number of these calls to our emergency services in the fire department, we could, our stockpile could be consumed quite rapidly. It's not even, I don't believe that it's adequate or sufficient, but you have to work with what you have. So our members are doing the best they can to keep distance. We're trying to triage people from the front door, not even entering into their home. We're asking people who have these symptoms, if they can, if they're mobile, to meet the first responders at the front door of their building or home. Come downstairs. We do not want to expose our first responders to this
Crisis, right?
well, to this virus unnecessarily. And, take the advice. The Centers for Disease Control, somebody has these symptoms, you do not necessarily need emergency care. You don't need to be in the emergency room. It's, contact your doctor. There are some things, because to be honest with you, people are exhibiting these symptoms and many of them aren't positive for COVID-19. Mm-hmm. So, it's critically important that we have the resources available in our fire department, our EMS, and our police departments to try to preserve those essential functions for not only this crisis, but for every other crisis we come about on a daily basis.
Now, Mr. McGoey, it was not long ago, I think last week, I don't remember the day for certain, that there was a scare at one of your firehouses.
Yes.
How did that turn out to be? I know that it turned out that the guy was, the firefighter was not positive, but what was the morale when that happened?
Well, we're like everybody else. We're first responders, but we can become alarmed for ourselves. So when a coworker is exhibiting some of the symptoms, of course the alarm bells go off and the concerns go off. We address this with City Hall and the fire commissioner, and everybody's trying to do the best they can. This isn't Democrats, Republicans, labor versus management. We're all trying to work through this. It's a crisis, it's nobody's fault. We have to do the best we can. And hopefully our elected officials are going to take heed of the recommendations of people that are on the front lines. And my members are on the front lines. We're the first responders. In most of these calls, it's the firefighters who are getting there first. And I want to make sure we protect our firefighters because I need them for much more than just COVID. We have a situation now where there's many people are going to be homebound. They're going to be cooking more. There's going to be more opportunities for teenagers, for reckless activities. It's very hard for some of these parents who have 2 or 3 children living in an apartment. I really think we have to have a shift in this country of what our priorities are. We've for too long, we've been holding sports athletes, entertainers as the heroes. When in effect, when a crisis occurs, whether it's now, after 9/11, or any emergency, who are the real heroes? It's your first responders, your police officers, your firefighters, EMS. It's our nurses, it's our doctors. And I constantly find myself having to defend, in a non-emergency time, the salaries and benefits and pensions of firefighters. And the police departments have to do the same thing. When it hits the fan, we're the ones that are there. And the priority should be with our emergency responders. I mean, how many people take teachers for granted? And now they've had their kids home from school for 1 or 2 days, and they realize how important the school system is for their kids, to educate them, to try to instill good values in them, to feed them. So many of these things we take for granted are really what bind our society together. And it's not a $1 billion contract for a sports star or some entertainer. That's not where the priority should be. And I really think, not many people talking about plastic straws or, non-reusable plastic bags or many of these other issues, vaping, right? They all fell to the wayside because when it comes down to it, public safety and public health is number one. And here we are as our first responders on the front lines. And as a member of organized labor, an outspoken leader in the organized labor movement, you've been there. I mean, we've been at protests at Mount Vernon Hospital to prevent Mount Vernon Hospital from being closed. We've been there for safe staffing for nurses. All of these to build new hospitals, to increase healthcare. And all of them have gone to the wayside. And it seems like it's whatever the flavor of the day is, like, banning plastic straws, but we let hospitals close down all around us. So we find ourselves in a crisis now without the adequate resources that we need. And if they had listened to some of the leaders in labor, we may not be in this position. We'd have adequate healthcare facilities. We'd have adequate number of hospitals. We've had an adequate number of nurses. We look at our first responders on the EMS side. A lot of them private-run agencies, very low paid. We have to encourage people to get into the emergency services field. We have to increase the training, and we have to increase the compensation to have a broad-based and good EMS service out there, because our fire departments and our police departments can't do it alone. We need ambulances, we need EMTs, we need paramedics, and they can't be just done through the fire department or through the police department.
Barry, just allow me to tell something to our audience. Guys, if you have a question, please post your question on this thread. Don't send me questions in private. It's right here. The conversation is going right here. So put your question down. Don't forget that questions must be posed in a respectful and polite manner. We will not address any rude stuff, okay? Even though no one is doing it, but just in case if somebody is thinking about doing, only questions and issues that are presented in a polite and respectful manner will be addressed. Training, Barry, training. This is something that we never saw, but training is important. Was your fire department or fire departments across the nation, because I'm sure that you talk with other union leaders, were they prepared to deal with something like this? Forget about the COVID-19. It could be anything else. Were we prepared to deal with a crisis of this magnitude?
I don't think anybody was prepared for this. I mean, this is of the magnitude that no one has ever seen or imagined. But I think everybody's done the best they can. You generally train for things that you're going to be doing. We do a tremendous amount of training on the EMS side, dealing with people having heart attacks, people need to be extricated from motor vehicle accidents, wound care. You don't train for things that you don't anticipate going to happen. But
that's an eye-opener, Barry. It's an eye-opener.
But you can use those skills and the incident management system. Those are transferable to any incident. And in the fire department, police department, we have things called incident management systems, which we can adapt to. And it's about a chain of command. It's about unity of command. And those are things that transcend any emergency. But as far as dealing with this pandemic, no, I don't think anybody was adequately prepared for it. Hopefully it's an eye-opener in many different facets of our national, state, and local governments and our elected officials, that in this day and age, these are the things that we have to be concerned about. A fast-moving virus of unknown origin, intensity, duration, how does it transmit from one person to another on surfaces? There's so many unanswered questions here, and that's why it all comes back to, for my members, trying to be as safe as they possibly can, because there are too many unanswered questions at this point. 6 months from now or a year from now, we'll have a lot more data, but right now we're in the throw of it, and it could get a lot worse in a very near term.
And it will. But the reason for my question, it's because in the world that we live in today, anything can happen. We have chemics, we have all kind of gases that can cause a mass chaos, just like this virus. If something was to happen, are we prepared to deal with it? I guess this crisis showed that we are not, because we couldn't react quick enough. Now, what about information, Barry? Is it important to give the people the right information, or is it best to keep certain information out in order not to panic the people?
Well, I think we have to make sure that the information that goes out is accurate, because inaccurate information is worse than no information. So we have to, hopefully, and we've seen a lot of bipartisanship now the last couple of days, the national and state levels so it's not about politics and it's not about the blame game. This is about people's lives. This is about the future of our country and our economy. And everything else should be put to the side. And not to be a blame game, but how do we learn? How do we admit we've made mistakes? And how do we move forward in a better way together in order to solve the problem? Here, what we want to do is limit contact on people. I think it's a great idea to, have all these closings. I don't think we have to have the shelter in place yet. Hopefully we don't, but not having people interacting so much. What the supermarkets are doing, sanitizing, the shopping carts. We're going to replenish. We have a great food supply system in this country. There is no reason to hoard food. We have a great distribution system in this country. And unfortunately, a lot of the people who are elderly or otherwise have an immune system which is depleted haven't been able to get to the supermarket and stand in line. So a lot of supermarkets now are actually putting time early in the morning for people who are elderly to get to the supermarket without the big crowds. We have to help each other. Wash your hands. If you're sick, do not put yourself in contact with somebody else that you want to potentially could expose them to a virus, any virus.
But Barry, that's what a chaos is. People panic. People don't know what to do. They don't know what's coming up next week or in 2 weeks from now. So the reaction is, let me get all that I can because I don't know. I don't know. Now, Barry, people are emailing me, and they email me this question to pose to you, and also to the other commissions that I have spoken with. Yes, we're telling people to maintain a social distance. We tell people to wash their hands as often as they possibly can. But there is a group of people that I call the forgotten ones, that people don't think about.
The homeless.
The homeless people. The homeless people. They probably don't even care. I was talking to a homeless the other day. He said, I wish I die. I have nothing to lose here. All my problems will be gone. But he might be infecting other people. He doesn't care. He doesn't check. He doesn't have a private physician to call. He's not going to follow the steps that are being set, call here, then wait outside. He's not going to do that. He's going to continue going to the stores, continue going to the library, and there is a potential there for a mass infection. We're trying to do things with one hand, but then we have the forgotten ones that are doing this not intentionally, but the end result is they might infect. And they might infect your members, because if they collapse, who's going to go there? Your members.
Well, that's a problem that's existed for a long time before this pandemic, and we just have to realize that that's an unfortunate thing that we cannot control in the short term, and that's why it's critically important that we do maintain proper hygiene amongst the general population, that we do have good social distancing, because we're not going to solve the homeless problems right now, and if anything, this pandemic is going to create additional mental health problems. It's going to additional crime. It's going to create additional domestic violence. It's going to create additional child abuse. These are the things that are going to happen. And it's unfortunate because we're asking people to confine themselves to their homes as much as they possibly can. And the home is quite often a place of friction. It's not, jolly land for everybody in this country. And having people confined to their homes, I think there's going to be a lot of social issues that come about from that. So we can't solve those problems. We can try to address them. But I think what we have to do is just stay focused on protecting as many people as we possibly can. Safe hygiene, washing of the hands, not going to the emergency room unnecessarily, not going to work if you're sick. I've told my members, if you're not feeling well, do not come to work. Call in sick. We do not need anybody coming to work with a reduced immune system, because we have a greater potentiality of being exposed. So there's a lot of safe practices we should engage in, and we're not going to solve every social ill during this pandemic, but I think those are things we should look forward as we move forward after we get past this. How do we solve the homeless situation in this country? How do we become more hygienic? I mean, I wish that the shutdown of all these bars and restaurants, I wish they would be given funding to become more sanitary. I can't tell you the number of restaurants I go into, and the bathrooms are horrific. Tiny little bathrooms with disgusting soap dispensers, those air dryers that blow fecal matter all over the place. This day we have technology, automatic flushers, automatic soap dispensers, automatic water running, and there should be a way to automatically open the door. So these restaurants themselves, now hopefully it's a good time to clean up inside those restaurants, because most of them are disgusting. most of our public places. Very, very bad in general of the spreading of germs. And now we're going to probably see more and more of these types of viruses as we go
But
forward, and we have to protect ourselves.
Before we go too far, my question in regards to the homeless was not addressed to solve the homeless issue, but how to address the spread of this virus that might contaminate the general population.
Right.
What is the counting? I'm sorry that you cannot answer me what others do or not doing, but according to you, or what you think, what are they doing to protect the general public from a spread of the contamination from the homeless population? That's what I was trying to get to, because we're trying to tell people to wash, but then we have people that might be contaminated walking among us and touching things. That's what I was addressing.
Well,
Now-
that's one of the reasons why we shouldn't be out there touching things that you don't know who touched before you.
Correct.
And I assume the county is doing the best they can, but they, like every other form of government that we have, are overwhelmed with this pandemic.
That's
And we
true.
have to look
That's true.
at the general public. We have to try to educate those people who can be educated as to safe practices, keeping safe distances, and that's the best thing we can do. And hopefully, we buys us the time to get some type of vaccination, and then we can address some of those issues after the fact. But right now, we have to educate those people and reach those people who can follow the instructions as best they can to protect themselves.
So talking about education, let me start by suggesting this. Schools are closed not for vacation. We are not taking time off to go and have fun. Jobs are shutting down. Supermarkets are going to into a tighter schedule. Many people are taking off from work not to do clean springing, not to be bringing stuff out. This is a crisis. With the homeless population, look, we adults, we've been hearing the recommendations over and over and over. Follow the instructions. Okay, it's nothing against the homeless. Those suggestions go for anybody. Don't be handshaking, elbow. Stay away as much as you can. Stay home. This is a crisis. This is time to stay home. Be careful with how you put the garbage out. You might be contaminated and don't know. Make sure you secure your garbage. Make sure that you play safe. It's not the time to go to restaurants. It's not the time to go to discos. It's a time to stay safe. An abundance of precaution is not too much, Barry.
Exactly. Great words of advice.
Yeah, it's not too much. Go over what you think you need. Now, Barry, you think this is going to last for much longer? What are you hoping? I'm hoping that this ends tomorrow, but we need to be real, right?
Well, I don't think it's realistic to think it ends tomorrow. I think we'll have a period where we'll have additional positive cases. It's looking good. The survival rate is good. Until we know how many cases there are, we're not going to appreciate how high the survival rate is. Right. And the survival rate is very, very high for the general population in good health. It's the elderly or people susceptible for many other medical reasons that are truly in danger. But I think we're looking probably a month or two before we got this in a handle. Hopefully the federal government can provide some funding to keep some of these small businesses. I know numerous people who have been laid off already from the service industry, whether it's restaurants or bars or hotels. They're going to need money to sustain themselves because we cannot allow this to destroy our economy. And this is a great time for an infrastructure bill. Let's get some construction companies hiring people. Let's put $1 trillion into infrastructure at the federal level. We have got our schools crumbling, our roads crumbling. We can put people back to work. When this virus is over, those restaurants and bars and hotels should be ready to get back in operation in short order. We will come up. We have the greatest healthcare system and scientists and universities in the world. We will come up with a vaccine for this. This will overcome this. It's just about how do we handle the interim. And hopefully we don't have civil unrest. Hopefully we don't have any other major incidences like hurricanes or earthquakes or any other kind of devastating effect. There's so many things that emergency services prepare for, and we weren't preparing for this properly. But there's so many other things that can still happen and go wrong. So let's all hope that the decisions being made by our elected officials and our leaders are prudent and wise and with the best intentions. And it looks that way. I mean, when we have Governor Cuomo and President Trump complimenting each other and not going back to blame each other for what happened 2 weeks ago, that's a very good sign, and that's the way we should go forward. You know, you're not going to hear me complain about our city administration. I want to work with them. We have to overcome anything that's caused friction in the past and work for the common good of our residents and our employees. I'm very concerned about the city's employees, the fire department, the police department, Department of Sanitation, and our public works department. You know, luckily the schools, there'll be some distance learning. Our teachers won't be exposed. They won't be exposing their families. But we all have to work on this together. We got to come together, put all differences aside, politics aside, beliefs aside, and try to work for the common good.
Wise words, guys. We will overcome these. United States will overcome these. We don't know how long, but we will overcome these, and we will be a better country, because now we learn a lesson from this crisis, and we will step forward doing things probably differently, but we will overcome. Now, Barry, just to conclude this interview, is there anything that I forgot to ask you that perhaps you want to tell the people of Yonkers? Anything?
No, just follow the guidance of the Centers for Disease Control. Keep safe distances. Wash your hands with soap and warm water. Sanitize as much as you possibly can. Be very concerned about public restrooms, public handles, public handrails, or being in too close a proximity to other people where you potentially could expose yourself to the germs. Just, you know, good practices, and try to believe that tomorrow will be a better day. We'll get through this. Don't let it get anybody down. We're the greatest country on the face of the earth, and we will overcome this, and we'll be stronger and better because of it, and we'll learn a lot of lessons that we can use that knowledge in the future for the betterment of all.
Thank you, Barry. On that note, we conclude this interview. We take the time to appreciate. We take the time to say thank you to you guys for watching it. And now I'm going to give elbow. How do we call this, Barry? Is that a chicken thing or what?
I don't know what they're calling it, but they're doing the toe taps now. They're doing everything.
Okay.
But we can do the elbow.
We do the elbow. That's the way, guys. Stay tuned. We always bring you things that we feel it's important to you. Yonkers Voice, it's always on your side to bring you the information that we feel it's important to our community. Thank you for watching. Until next time.
Thank you.